Bonny Doon is sort of it's very much a work in progress. It is, or at least historically has been, you could almost say more performance art than actual winery. Or at least it's been an intellectual exercise. And maybe some people, rightly or wrongly, can criticize me for lack of rigor or lack of discipline, but I was just having a great time and having fun. Nobody explained to me that actually you have to be in business and there's like sort of an end point to it all. And in those days, in fact, you could actually, the more you played, sort of the better it worked. I think now you still have to play, but I think one needs to be a little more rigorous in one's approach. So Bonny Doon started really small in the eponymous Bonny Doon with the naive aspiration of producing the great American Pinot Noir, and then of course this didn't quite work by a long shot because I was buying grapes from Oregon that were like 3 times better than the ones I was growing myself. And I thought, well, geez Louise. And I mean, it kind of brings one to the existential reality that there is, everything we do in California is essentially made out of, is being created out of whole cloth. I mean, we're kind of making it up as we go along. There aren't really these signposts that tell us you're on the right track, you're on the wrong track. So it's very easy to diverge from the true and virtuous path, very easily. So Pinot Noir failure, but luckily I had this idea of, well, maybe Rhone grapes will do well. And actually it was a pretty good first approximation, and they actually have done well. And what's important to remember is when I started, there was very little Syrah in California. There were 3 Syrah vineyards in California. It's hard to imagine. And there was one in Paso Robles, in East Paso Robles, called Estrella River. It was dreadful. And then there were 2 dreadful ones in Napa. There was an old planting of Christian Brothers, and then Phelps planted Syrah. And if you remember the early Phelps Syrah, those were really quite astonishing wines. You didn't know that pHs could go that high. It was like the pH meter would peg out. Anyways, but there was amazingly some old Grenache vineyards in the Central Coast. There was some old Grenache that I found in Gilroy, and some old Grenache in Piscinas, and that was pretty much the old Grenache. So luckily, Grenache was kind of the savior of, and then I found Mourvedre. I found old vine Mourvedre. So I accidentally found some good vineyards and made some good wines at the beginning. And I could just as easily have not have, and my history would have been different. But anyways, it worked out. So Bonny Doon grew and became very complex and labyrinthine and convoluted, to the point where it just got too complex. And I was very interested in vin de terroir. This is sort of, for me, the only wines that really make any sense. Everything else is really just thoroughly dispensable. But looking at myself in the mirror, I realized there was nothing in what I was doing that was congruent with what I was saying, and so it was just time to kind of get them trued up. So it was 5-6 years ago, I sold Big House and Cardinals Inn, and shrunk the company, spun off Pacific Rim as a separate company, and then actually just sold that recently, a couple weeks ago. Bonny Doon has shrunk. We're on the trail of terroir. We're not there yet by a long shot, but we're on the way. I bought some land in San Juan Bautista about 1.5 years ago. That is where we will produce some really interesting wines. I say interesting in the sort of broadest possible sense. Whether they're going to be any good, we don't know, but they're going to be interesting. What I'm going to try to achieve at San Juan, I want to grow grapes without.
Where exactly is that?
San Juan Bautista.
Yeah. Central America.
It's Central America. Central America, take it away. San Juan Bautista is about 12 miles south of Gilroy and about 10 miles west of Hollister. It's on Highway 156. There's a mission there, beautiful mission, which is where Hitchcock filmed Vertigo. And it's a funny little town. It's a tiny little town. Feral chickens run through the town. Nobody knows why they do it, but they do.
Nobody knows it exists because if you blink here,
It's a tiny little town.
Yeah.
It's a tiny little town. But this place has power. It's a really extraordinary spot. I recently had the French soil scientists, the Claude and Lydia Bourguignon, come to visit, and they were astonished by the place. They found 4 distinctive soil typologies: volcanic soils, limestone soils, granitic soils, and metamorphic soils. And they said that you very seldom find these 4 types in the same place. They were quite astonished by that. And they were pretty excited, especially when they found the limestone and they took out their sulfuric acid and it just kind of fizzled, and they were jazzed. I was jazzed. So we want to grow grapes without irrigation. It's going to be very old-fangled, head-trained, no wire, no trellis, very genetically diverse. And then there's another thing we're going to try to do there, which is either going to be great or it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And this idea is to try to grow grapes without regard to the varietal typology, to grow grapes from seeds, in other words. And the reason, there's a little method to this. It's not just utter random fantasy. When you grow grapes from seeds, the genetic information gets assembled and remixed. So all the ancestry of the plants is potentially re-expressed in the daughter plant. So if you take a seedling from a Grenache vine, it will be Grenache-ish, but not Grenache anymore. So you'll get red Grenache, pink Grenache, white Grenache, polka dot Grenache, every possible variation. My belief is that by creating this population of vines that all sort of have kind of the same, they're all from the same tribe, if you will, but with differences, one might arrive at a level of complexity that one would not otherwise achieve. Or it could be utter noise, I don't know. But I kind of suspect that there's going to be some depth and complexity that one would not otherwise find. The other thing you'll find, I think think of it like a gestalt. We tend to focus on varietal character of wines, or the fruit of the wine, or sort of those varietal characteristics. There are certain wines that we consume where the varietal doesn't really matter. It sort of recedes. It's there, but it's not something that is really the primary focus of the wine. It's the qualities of the site itself. You know, if you look at the Dice wines, for example, where he'll mix the different varieties together, you don't really get the varietal expression, but you get a strong expression of the site. And that's what I'm hoping we can achieve with the seeds. The other thing is seedlings root differently. And that again, is maybe a bit of a leap of faith on my part, but they have a different rooting habit. They root straight down rather than with branching roots. And I think this will also give us a much greater likelihood of a soil expression, of a strong soil expression compared to a conventional vineyard. The other thing that we're going to do that's quite unusual, and no one has done this to my knowledge in California or in the New World. Actually, that's not true. Maybe in New Zealand they may have tried this. But we're experimenting with a material called biochar, which is essentially charcoal. It's organic matter that's been heated in the absence of oxygen at a moderate temperature. So it's not ash, but it's basically charcoal. And what this does is, when you add it to soil, a number of things happen. It's very hydroscopic. Is it hydroscopic or hygroscopic? Anyways, it holds on to water. And so it holds 6 times its mass in water. So the water holding capacity of the soil is greatly enhanced by 30 to 35%, which is non-trivial. So much better water holding capacity, and it holds the water tightly. And then the other thing is it creates a lot of pores in the soil for microflora to grow. So the microbial